Hello, dear community, and very welcome to our RBI Blockchain Night. We see each other for the second time. It's my pleasure to be able to host this event for the second time. Great community around the RBI, great topic for tonight, focus on interoperability and decentralized finance. I'm curious what the panelists will say. We have great speakers, we have great intros and inputs from RBI side, very high level. We'll see what these guys are up to. They've been really active in the field of blockchain, in the field of cooperation, building ecosystems, building communities around the topics of blockchain and beyond, as well on the open banking, API, and collaboration with fintechs and cross, so to say, industry cooperation. And we have with me now the Christian Wolf, who will give us some intros, Head of Strategic Partnerships and Ecosystems and RBI. Christian, very welcome.
Hi, Dejan. Thanks for having us.
It's fantastic that we are able to continue this series of your events, Blockchain Night today, with a focus on interoperability and decentralized finance. Before we have a look at your activities currently, why did you choose these topics for tonight?
Actually, it comes quite natural to an incumbent bank as we are. Decentralized finance came up with the emergence of the blockchain technology, and I think it came quite natural for us as a big bank to look into what is out there, which can challenge us, but also in a positive way. So how can we leverage this new technology to position ourselves in this new ecosystem world of the blockchain? And interoperability, because you just mentioned that, actually is also a big question mark for us. We want to create ecosystems for our clients, be it corporates, be it institutionals, but also retail clients, who should not be in the situation to care about on how they can transfer assets from A to B, but we take care of that. And interoperability actually exactly means that. And how can we assure that this customer journey from native tokens from one blockchain can move to another blockchain without losing anything?
We'll introduce your other activities in a second, but I'd like to start with some welcoming words from your colleagues as well. We have a video of Hannes Zizek, Head of Group Strategy, and of his colleague, and I'd like to ask my colleague Haris to play the welcome video.
Our vision for 2025 is to be the most recommended financial service group, which is together with our mission to transform continuous innovation into superior customer experience, the ambitious target. Besides many different innovation initiatives like the Open API program or the Elevator Lab, we decided to explore blockchain technology to support this path. The RBI Blockchain Hub was founded in the wake of the boom in cryptocurrencies, when RBI began to take a deeper look into practical applications of blockchain technology and its significance for the overall banking business. This decision was based on the belief that the blockchain technology can play an important role for institutional clients, but also for private consumers. I think and I believe this is also supported by the observation that many banks globally are actively dealing with the technology in recent years. RBI, due to its strong position in capital markets and transaction banking across our region, has a great potential to further discover this technology and to focus on improvement of our operational excellence in that way. Although CE is still a heterogeneous region, we see a lot of blockchain activity, and the network banks are actively looking into different blockchain use cases. Raiffeisen Bank Russia, for instance, has not only ongoing projects for faster and more transparent refueling activity settlements, to have only one example, but also provides a DLT solution for its customers to make instant ticket settlement with one of the largest private airlines in Russia. The banking industry is changing and offers great opportunities for us. We continue to strive for innovation, and the Blockchain Hub is an important part of it. The future of this technology shows great potential, and Raiffeisen Bank International is ready for it.
So welcome also from my side to the Blockchain Night. My name is Werner Meyer, and I'm responsible for Group Core IT and data within the RBI organization. In 2020, we updated our IT strategy. Best people on board, the agile operating model, but also technology leadership is on our agenda, main pillars of our strategy. In this strategy, we are actively observing and pursuing the new technology trends to enable digital banking. We define blockchain as one of our key potential new technologies and believe that blockchain-based digital transformation is on the horizon, and the horizon is coming closer and closer. Therefore, we are strategically observing value and use cases on the blockchain technology that it can enable RBI in short but also in long-term perspectives to be on top on the blockchain expedition within CE and our banking environment. Under the Blockchain Hub, we assist blockchain-based solution pilots and partner up with established blockchain vendors to realize blockchain use cases and running the test processes. We're running IFIs, RFPs, proof of concepts, we're creating MVPs and so on. We are primarily investigating distributed ledger technology, blockchain-based use cases which can be highly scalable to realize our banking application within the RBI group. We witness a growing number of back-end banking solutions based on smart contracts, blockchain as durable media, tokenization in international banking and asset management, and more comes. Looking in the future of blockchain, we also mapped opportunities where blockchain coupled with IoT, big data, artificial intelligence can drive instant sharing of real-time data and accurate updates. So I'm happy to be part in this blockchain night. Enjoy, learn, and happy to see you.
Christian, this is actually mind-blowing for me what I just heard from IT. In a very stereotypical mindset, we wouldn't expect such strong statements toward blockchain to come from the IT side. And you're responsible for RBI Blockchain Hub, among other things. And so I'd like to understand what role does it play within the group and why do you do that?
Well, the Blockchain Hub is positioned as kind of a competence center. Quite naturally, we look into the technology itself together with our colleagues in IT, so on how does it actually fit into our infrastructure, how does it fit to our IT landscape in general. But even more importantly, what we try to achieve here is that we get a very in-depth understanding on how the technology applied to the banking industry affects and impacts our business models. And the Blockchain Hub as such now has the very clear task to develop, to monitor, but also to come up with originate new ideas in the area of blockchain that then can be implemented and transformed into daily operations of our banking business. So the Blockchain Hub can be summarized as kind of an incubator of ideas that are naturally based on blockchain technology, but not limited. So we also look at surrounding and adjacent technologies. It helps more or less kickstart new projects with our business lines or also with our external partners. So Blockchain Hub is originating new ideas. It's also about educating actually our own bank, but also our surrounding partners. It's about running POCs, so meaning proof of concepts, so actually proving that the technology itself can be not only technically implemented, but also brings value to the bank. And I believe, as such, the Blockchain Hub has established itself quite nicely over the last few years, and I'm quite happy that the Blockchain Hub actually is today the host of this event, and we have so many exciting news to share.
It is really also exciting for me. We've been cooperating together, I think, approximately since 3 years, since the Elevator Lab FinTech Accelerator started. And it's seriously mind-blowing how far you guys have come and the pace and the speed that you have. You said that Blockchain Hub is, among other things, also a playground to get to know the technology, the opportunities. But we see a lot of playgrounds in the economy at the big companies. But the, let's say, seriousness of your activities, even the IT, speaking about the relevance of blockchain, being your partner, means that it's not just, let's say, in the innovation bubble, some kind of playground topic, but you mean it seriously, you build product, you cooperate with startups and other things. So how serious are you guys in the whole group about this topic?
Very. That's actually the reason why we're here. And as I just mentioned before, our goal is not just running a POC. So just proving that something is technically possible of course, this is also part of the story, but even more important for us is that we prove that there is kind of value. This means that we run these POCs, and there is quite a lot of ideas that we actually abandon afterwards because we see they are not working out. But with our quite structured approach that we developed over the last few years, we have come to a situation where in a very early stage we can already assess if this project, this specific project is actually working out or not. So meaning we connect this actually with our other activities as well. You just mentioned it. We do not only have the Blockchain Hub available as a vehicle internally to us. Quite naturally is also the cooperation and direct cooperation with fintechs. And as such, we have talked about that at various occasions that we run the Elevator Lab, our fintech partnership program that actually really serves the same purpose, to engage with the ecosystem, but not only bring players together, but also take an active role in that. And I think this also nicely fits to the blockchain story. I usually say that coming up with a blockchain solution just for my own does not make any sense. Being in the blockchain area always means being part of a larger ecosystem, and the very same story holds true for the fintech ecosystem, but also as Mr. Zizek stated in his introduction, it's about open APIs, what is our internal name for open banking actually. So also here, it's not so much about digitalization anymore. We are, as a bank, quite digital already, but it's about interconnectivity. So how do we actually connect to the internal and equally to the external world?
Let's zoom out for a second because I find this very interesting. You mentioned the Elevator Lab FinTech Partnership Program. Yep. You mentioned obviously Blockchain Hub that we are talking today about, but as well the Open API and the cooperation kind of collaboration initiatives. Yes. Does this all belong to your scope or responsibilities? Is there a strategic logic behind it to bundle all these topics in one position?
I think, and this might not be so visible to the external world, we are part of group strategy, and I think this very nicely reflects the importance that we put on these topics. So be it the cooperation in general, and I do not limit this solely to fintechs, but I would also include our own corporate clients who are approaching us for technology partnerships, for instance. It would also include, of course, cooperation concept with big techs, with other established players. And of course, we have a completely new customer group, it's developers who actually only digitally connect to our systems in order to build their own products on top of what we provide. And I think this ecosystem story nicely fits to all of these vehicles. So what we are trying there is being an orchestrating part of an ecosystem, actually.
And the ecosystem expands far beyond Austrian borders. You're very active, obviously, the Central Eastern Europe you have very, very strong and active subsidiaries in the CEE region. So maybe can I ask you how active are your subsidiaries in the field of blockchain in different countries?
Quite active. Again, Hannes said it in his introduction. Especially Russia is quite advanced in the application of blockchain use cases, but this is not limited to Russia, of course. We have a quite heterogeneous landscape of markets, so you might be aware that we are operating in 13 different CE markets that are large of size, like Russia, but we have also our smaller countries on the Balkans. But what they all have in common is that they take a very innovative approach in adopting new technologies. And our role in the Blockchain Hub here specifically is to accompany them and to also lead them in order to implement solutions that are scalable, not only locally, but also across the group. And I think this is a USP or a proposal that we can give to the external world as well, is cooperating with us means not only cooperating with Raiffeisen in one specific country, but cooperating with RBI Group in 13 countries at once.
So through your hub and your activities in all fields, API, open API, blockchain, fintech partnership and collaborations beyond, you could I call you as an entrance door into let's say, 14 markets for your partners on the various fields.
That's what we aim for, yes. So that when it comes to innovative concepts, approaches, product, services, our offer is that we connect you to RBI Group internally. So I just take the example for a fintech. Of course, every fintech, if wanted, or any startup, if wanted, can connect directly to our local subsidiary banks. Of course, this is certainly doable. But on the other hand, if you want to run through 13 banks, this is quite of an effort. And this is our proposal here and our function here, actually, that we bundle these activities and that we scale you as a cooperation partner across the group.
Which would probably mean that when you talk about community building and ecosystems, you don't talk only about Austria, you talk about the whole CE region that you address.
Yes, yes. It's about the CE. Of course, the CE region is where our customers are. And our customers are not limited to retail customers only. We have quite a considerable portion of corporate customers and institutional customers who have also quite a demand on the products and services that we build. And on the other hand, when it comes to our cooperation partners, this is of course not limited to CE. So I just look into the last batches of our elevator program, where we had applicants not just from the closer geographic area, but we've also seen applications from Brazil, from Israel, from all around the world.
Which is really fantastic. Do you think that we have, let's call it as European market or CE market, a chance when we think as a community beyond our national borders to have a relevant role on the global, so to say, scale, in the global competition?
Definitely, definitely. But you just mentioned that it's not a game that somebody can play on its own. So this is a game of cooperation and co-innovation. But once we master that, and once we see the willingness of all involved partners, I have no doubt.
And you're doing it. I mean, you mentioned obviously, I think 3 batches already or more of Elevator Lab, the FinTech Partnership Accelerator, and within this Elevator Lab last year, Kopich, as one of your corporate partners, also collaborated with you and developed a POC together.
Yes, yes, and this is what we aim for, actually. As said, Elevator Lab was up until now focusing on fintechs, which is quite close to our core, of course, but we want to extend that cooperation offer beyond fintechs, in general startups, but also to corporates, be it our own corporate clients or whoever else is out there. We really believe that teaming up, bringing capabilities together can lead to very nice and exciting new products.
Obviously, in the whole scope of your activities, RBI is also extremely advanced when it comes to, let's say, corporate venture funds. You also have this structure, and we have now some fresh announcements that you made, very good cooperation with Bitpanda in terms of project Pantos.
Yes.
Could you give us maybe some insights on that? We'll talk about Pantos later on as well, don't worry. But from your perspective, why did you do that? What do you expect from this cooperation?
Maybe to better understand the real implications of the cooperation, we will later have a deep dive on that. But on general, as I said, coming back to our blockchain topic, we believe that based on the project that we already run internally, namely the Rbi Coin, which is an inter-institutional or inter-corporate settlement coin pegged one-to-one to the euro. We see, and this is running on a proprietary blockchain that we actually built with one of the alumni of the Elevator Lab, namely the British-Polish fintech Bilon.
Great.
And as said, this is a proprietary blockchain. So how do we ensure that a future flexibility for our products and services is ensured? How can we make this compatible, not just the RBI coin, any future idea that we might come up with? How can we make this compatible? How can we make this less dependent from one single technology, for instance? On how can we, for instance, if we see different blockchains developing at different speed, how can we ensure that we can move these to other blockchains? How can we ensure the customer journeys can be covered across different blockchains? Here, the interoperability aspect comes really into the play. And one of the major reasons why we have this exciting panel today. And one of the major reasons why we teamed up with Bitpanda, because we believe that the Pantus project itself is exactly targeting that question. Of course, there's other initiatives globally who look at the same question as well, but we really believe in the capabilities and in the great track record that Bitpanda built up over the last few years. So we see in Bitpanda established and well-known partner where we both believe, Bitpanda and our side, that if we join forces, we will be able to do good.
And to be honest, it's probably also to join forces, obviously given that this is a very good partner, which without doubt it is, in Vienna. You can just drive to each other, sit down on the same table and work on projects.
This was not, let's say, our most prominent aspect in how to enter the cooperation, but you're completely right. When it comes to teaming up, still in times of COVID, it's important to be able to quickly connect to the people, be it virtually, but also physically. And of course, it's literally across the street. And this really helps a very close cooperation.
Could you give us some outlook? I was really surprised. I think sometime in Corona times, you let us know about new strategy that you combine all of these aspects, open API, blockchain, elevator lab, and cross-industry collaboration under your leadership. What do you plan for next year? Where is this development going within your scope? Because I can see that you guys have a strong speed, so let us know beforehand so that we can anticipate some developments.
Well, some would say this is a question for a long evening with a lot of red wine. But to make it quite short, we really believe in the emergence of ecosystems and platform business. And we really believe that RBI should have a pivotal and an important role in that play. In addition, if we look into back to our blockchain topic of tonight, if we look into blockchain, there is so many exciting new projects developing that are both, on the one hand, challenging our own business model, and we want to be able to have a response for that. But on the other hand, they are challenging it such a way that if we implement and if we adopt these technologies also for our purpose, we believe this could be a great and exciting new future for our customers.
Maybe for our audience and your audience and other innovation managers, other transformation managers, do you have any advice or how did you guys do it? How did you get the IT on board? How did you get the CEO on board to support you, not only to support you so strongly on this topic, but to understand and to deep dive on their own into this topic? What's the secret sauce that you have this, let's say, alignment of interest in your whole group?
Hard to say, but I would say it's a mixture of curiosity on our personal level. So when we started the Blockchain Hub back a few years ago, we were all rookies, more or less. So we also, our Blockchain Hub leader that you will get to know later on, Stefan Angelic, started more or less fresh. So it's a curiosity and the personal involvement that we put into our projects. We engage also on a private level very much with the community, so we get a lot of ideas there. And once you have this personal curiosity and you bring in this educative approach to the bank and you start discussing different use cases that you can follow up on, what happens then is this is not a buy-in that you create, but you create a conversation. And you know, this is the most important part. Once you have a conversation up and running, this is where ideas are generated. And when ideas are generated with a large pool of stakeholders, this is where you get your buy-in. And of course, combining this with an external view, of course we do our market research. Of course we look into what's happening in the industry, on the technology side, on the business side. And if you combine this and you build for yourself a scenario and you say, this is what we believe the future will look like. Of course, this is a hypothesis. And you define very clearly what role you want to play in there, then I wouldn't say it's easier, but it's easier to buy in your stakeholders.
It's amazing, especially this is something that we really see at many corporates, so to say, that they struggle in getting the IT on board to understand this as their own, to understand this as their core business, as their responsibility for the future as well. So I think you guys are very well set up for the future of blockchain.
Thanks. I just want to jump in here. We've always seen our cooperation with IT as a very close and a good one. So getting IT on board for us was not nights of convincing, etc. But I think it was quite really natural. We sat together, we said from a business point of view, we want to follow up on that. How do you see that? And again, once the conversation was going, we were on a clear track.
And this seems to be one of the real strengths of your program. In a minute, we're going to start with our first panel on interoperability. How would you, this is a tricky question, I know, and I have an advantage because Stefan gave me a really good example, but how would you explain interoperability to a 3-year-old? Do you have maybe some kind of super easy examples?
Oh, that's really a tricky one because I'm not prepared for that.
You know what, Stefan?
But I would compare it. All of you know the Lego bricks, you know, but you all know I don't need the Duplo bricks.
Yes.
You know?
Ah.
And if you want to match those two, it does not work.
Christian, amazing. You know what Stefan told me? He said, if you compare emails, for example, it's the same as if you would only be able to send emails from Hotmail to Hotmail, from Gmail to Gmail.
That's true.
It's from blockchain, Bitcoin blockchain to Bitcoin blockchain, from other blockchains to other, and now we want to be able to send emails from Hotmail to Gmail, and this in blockchain context, and this is what we're going to talk about.
Exactly. This is interoperability, and this is the major reason of our Pantos cooperation.
A super smart example for the kids. I'll remember that. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So, guys, we are moving on to our next panel, and before we start, we want to give some context on that. Apart from Lego and Duplo and obviously my Hotmail and Gmail example, we have a video prepared to give you some context on the interoperability. It's not a topic that everybody knows. So for those of you who are new to deep dive into this topic, feel free to see the video, and then I will invite our panelists and our speakers for the first panel on stage. Please, our first video.
We live in a world that is becoming increasingly interconnected. New technologies connect people and devices even more safely and efficiently. One of these technologies, the blockchain. It's evolving to become an integral part of our lives. We all know of crypto assets as the first successful application of blockchain technology, but the possible blockchain-based use cases seem to be limitless. Digital identity, access control, ticketing, intellectual property, financing solutions, and so on. While the number of applications utilizing blockchain technology are growing at a rapid pace, these blockchains remain isolated. The problem? Blockchains cannot interact with each other by nature. This means that a blockchain has no knowledge of what happens in other blockchains. But the question is, will different blockchains ever be able to interact with one another? Or will they remain working as siloed solutions?
So, welcome back on stage, and I'd like to invite all our panelists to join me on stage now. Lucas, Makoto, and Alexander, please come on stage. Do you all hear us? I can see you all, guys. Thanks for joining in. This worked out very, very well. How are you doing?
Hello, everyone. Yeah, fine so far. Great to be here today.
We have a great topic to talk about. I don't know whether you were able to hear the example of Christian, who explained us, so to say, for a 3-year-old what interoperability is. And he said, if you have Legos and Duplo, they don't match. So we want to find, so to say, a system that enables us to use Lego with Duplo. Is that something that you would also use to explain interoperability to a 2-year-old?
Yeah, I thought it was a very good example.
Perfect. Now, we have 3 experts here. You have different contexts, and I will introduce you. Lucas Enzersdorfer is COO of Bitpanda, obviously Project Pantos, very relevant in this field. Then we have Makoto Takemiya, co-founder and CEO of Soramitsu. Very, very strong breaking news that you're bringing with you in this field. And Alexander Bechtel, digital currency strategy analyst at Deutsche Bank. I'm super curious to understand, Alexander, what you guys are doing in this field. So let's start with maybe a current status from your perspective. Where do we stand in the field of interoperability? Maybe we can start with you, Lucas. Obviously, with your project Pantos, you can give us some insights.
Yes, for sure. So first of all, great to be here today at RBI Blockchain Night. For us at Bitpanda, but also in general for the industry, I think we are still in the very early days. What we've seen is a broader adoption of blockchain technology, but there is no standard yet. Nevertheless, the use cases get more and more adopted, and more also traditional players work on that. So banks, for example, but also central banks. And therefore, blockchain interoperability gets more and more important as long as there is not yet any concrete standard, so to say. And for us, with the Pandas project, we are working already since 2.5 years really on that to bring the industry forward and to give also the whole community something back, which is a technology which enables blockchain interoperability between two completely different blockchains. So between Duplo and Lego, so to say.
Do you have, or did you guys have, or does this Evolve have specific use cases in mind? What do you think are going to be the first ones to tackle?
From a blockchain interoperability perspective?
Yes.
So it mainly will depend. So if you think about the traditional financial service industry, it can be tokens like payment tokens, for example, but it definitely can also be projects in regards to tokenization. Because we at Bitpanda, we really believe that tokenization will be one of the next big things in regards of blockchain technology, so asset tokenization on blockchains. And therefore, you as a project issuer and token issuer, so to say, you can really use it then to be independent from a blockchain technology if you use technology like Pandas to ensure blockchain interoperability.
Great. Makoto, you're bringing, so to say, breaking news with you. Congratulations in advance. A project on central bank digital currencies with Cambodia. Could you give us some insights what you guys did this week, and then we'll have a look into it from the perspective of interoperability?
Yeah, sure. Just yesterday, our work with the Central Bank of Cambodia went live officially. We've been working with them for the last 3 years, and this has been a really exciting and really, I think, in many ways, very innovative and groundbreaking work. So for those who don't know, we've been working with the Central Bank of Cambodia on Project Bakong, which is a central bank digital currency solution that focuses on a retail central bank digital currency. So that means that the central bank actually provides a mobile app that anyone in the kingdom can use to send and receive money, which is really quite, I think, innovative for many central banks. And this is also exciting for interoperability as well, because I think we can talk more about it over the course of the session, but kind of a high-level overview would be that if two central banks implement a similar solution, what you can do is you can actually directly communicate or directly send money to each other without having to go through some kind of intermediary settlement institution or other type of messaging layer. Besides our work in Cambodia, we've done a lot of work with in the Polkadot ecosystem, which is another exciting open source project. It's still very early and has lots of things to be implemented still, but Polkadot is interesting. And on top of Polkadot infrastructure, we're working on a couple of interesting initiatives. One is a DEX called PokaSwap that's meant to be kind of like a decentralized finance application. And then we're also building a network called the Sora network, which is focused around a token called XOR that is used to kind of power this DEX. So that's some of what we've been doing, but we've been contributors to open source technology actually over the last few years, and we've been working with Polkadot since 2018 actually. So it's been quite a long road, but there's lots of problems to be fixed. But I'm really excited about the potential for interoperability between different blockchain applications.
How did it work with Cambodia, or did they approach you? How much convincing did it take to tackle the project? Maybe just a quick insight on that.
Sure. So actually, the Central Bank of Cambodia started to study central bank digital currencies since 2016, and they came to us in 2017 and asked us, to work with them. And we had a good, chemistry with our team, and we sent people to work directly with the central bank staff, and we worked over the last 3 years. So it's been a long journey, but this week is very important to us because just yesterday it went live officially as the official launch and a central banking publication called Central Banking as the CBDC provider of the year. So it's been quite an honor as a small company as we are.
Fantastic. Alexander, give us some insights maybe on the Deutsche Bank perspective. Your position is called Digital Currency Strategy Analyst. So there's a lot of strategic value to it. How do you guys position yourself in the field of blockchain? What kind of relevance does interoperability have for you?
Yes, so Deutsche Bank has been for a long time digging into that topic, but only very recently we started to look at it from really strategy and company-wide perspective, and that's a bit my role there. So the title is a bit of an intermediary title. I think it will be changed in the near future. So we are now starting digging really into the topic from a strategic point of view and asking ourselves where do we want to go and what do we want to do in the future. And one major problem which we are facing when it comes to interoperability is the following. Actually, it's a twofold problem. In every trade, right, you have the cash side and you have the asset side, let's say. And what we observe nowadays is that assets, for instance, bonds, right, are transferred onto blockchains. They are represented as tokens on a blockchain. And of course, this makes trading these bonds very efficient, right? The problem is we do not have the cash side yet on a blockchain. And what we are trying to solve here is to bring the cash leg also onto a blockchain. Now, the problem is when you have the cash leg on a blockchain, it of course has to be able to communicate with this token-based side. So you should not use two different blockchains here, or at least you shouldn't use blockchains that cannot communicate with each other. And currently the major obstacle is, of course, that there are different technologies used in order to tokenize bonds. So the big question for us is which technology should be used to tokenize the cash, right? If we want to represent our commercial bank money on a blockchain. That's the first obstacle we see. And the second obstacle, of course, it's not only trading money for bonds, it's also that more and more business processes or value chains are moving onto a blockchain. And let me give you a concrete example. And this comes from Bosch. Let's say in the future, e-cars will autonomously drive to charging stations and recharge. And then it's the car, after having recharged, it's the car that triggers a payment. And this payment might be triggered from a blockchain, right? There's a smart contract sitting on a blockchain, and this contract triggers a payment. Currently, we are not able to settle these kinds of payments with our legacy payment system. So the problem is also we need to adjust our current payment system in order to be able to communicate with these smart contracts. And here we're facing exactly the same problem. Maybe Bosch is deciding for its smart contract to use blockchain A, and another company with another use case is deciding to use blockchain B. And we are again sitting here and wondering on which technology should we put our cash in order to make it interoperable with all these use cases.
How do you approach this topic? We've heard from RBI, they're very strong in cooperating with startups, with blockchain experts, with other big companies, with fintechs. Do you go about these topics the same way? Do you open up and look for solution on the market, or how do you want to solve these questions that you just raised?
I mean, that's of course one part when it comes to building things. It's not the case that we have 100 blockchain developers in-house that we can do it on our own. So the first step will definitely be, and that's what we are already doing, partnering up with companies outside. Long term, of course, we want to have a good part of this knowledge in-house. So we, as a bank, for instance, something like custody, we should not offer externally. That's something we want to offer on our own, of course. But apart from this partnering up, one very important thing we are currently doing is talking to other banks. I mean, we have the banking associations in Germany, but also on a European level, and actually talking about how are the others approaching these topics, which technology are they planning to use or thinking about, because of course we as banks have to agree on which technology to use or which technology stacks to use before we can move on. So it's a lot of debating and standardizing, discussions about standardizations and these kind of things.
Lukas, could very concretely asked, Deutsche Bank profit from your solution here?
Overall spoken, yes, for sure. I think as Alexander laid out, it's exactly that problem. How can you have the interoperability between different technologies. And there it's mainly about which protocol and which script in the end to use and how does that work. And I think what also, as Makoto laid out with the Polkadot project, for example, but as well also Pantos, what currently these projects are definitely facing is how to get from a proof of concept to a production-ready technology. And how to make it as cost efficient. Because in the end, if we speak, and I think the example was quite well of this autonomous driving car, which want to charge and then pay for it. And this car can pay with fiat money, which is tokenized on a blockchain, or it can pay already with an asset, which is tokenized on a blockchain. Nevertheless, it will have to have a blockchain transaction. So therefore, it really is the topic of how can such small micropayments in the end probably also can be efficiently made and make possible through technology. And this is the big current hurdle and the next big step to take also for us at the Pantos project, and therefore working closely with banks like RBI on the one side, but we're also happy to work with Deutsche Bank for sure. On the other, would bring the whole industry further.
But back to Pantos project, that would mean that you guys would be open for any use case that can fit your technology, or are you focusing on, let's say, financial sector?
In general spoken, for sure, different use cases, because blockchain technology is completely agnostic if it's a financial service industry use case or a different one, nevertheless. And I think this is here the big topic, the DLT. So and blockchain technology will be heavily used and will really change and develop and transform in the end the financial service industry and banks, spoken into custody services, spoken into the tokenized storing of value and the tokenized trading of value. And this, therefore, is also our current big focus with the Pantos project of how to make this possible, e.g. with the RBI project of the Rbi Coin.
Makoto, you mentioned already the problem of interoperability between different CBDCs. How can this be solved? Do you see any projects working on that? Are you guys working on that?
So this is still a very new and nascent space. And so many central banks don't yet have a defined protocol for working with other central banks in a settlement, in interledger settlement. We've been, of course, talking to many different central banks and then also larger banks in the world who are doing their own digital currencies to try to tie it into the system. But at the end of the day, it's going to require lots of bilateral relationships and harmonization of regulations. I know that the work by the IMF on harmonizing regulations between many different countries is probably an important step in having different countries do direct interledger settlement. But that's just one part. There's also a technological side. So technologies like Pantos or Polkadot or other things like Cosmos are also interesting technologies, but these are also rapidly changing and evolving. And at the end of the day, you have to have a regulatory framework in place in order for the technology to be used to its potential. It's also important to realize that it comes in waves. So you have this kind of like infrastructure and then apps cycle where you have infrastructure that is created, and then this leads to new types of apps, and then these apps actually require new infrastructure, which then again leads to new apps. And it's an ongoing cycle of progress, and I think it should be embraced. And the current CBDCs is just a natural response to the internet technology and blockchain that has already come about. But it's by no means in its final form, and it will never be final. Technology will always improve and always get better. So it's a very exciting time to be part of this field.
Alexander, is that a topic, the whole question of, so to say, payments on the blockchain and as mentioned, CBDCs? Is that something that you guys are also looking into? What's your, so to say, status maybe when we look into the European landscape?
Yes, I mean, of course, payments is a huge topic, and maybe just as a comment to what Makoto has just said, one thing that makes the whole CBDC field even more complex is that it's far from clear if all CBDCs will, in the end, sit on a blockchain, right, or use a distributed ledger technology. For instance, if I look to China, they are not using DLT. They are using maybe partially technologies that are also used in DLT environments, but it's not like a blockchain-based currency. So you might even have to cross here the bridge between DLT-based CBDCs and non-DLT-based CBDCs.
In terms of interoperability?
Exactly.
Exciting.
Yes, I mean, we are of course looking very much at the topic payment. That's of course one of the core features, and I mean, I've already mentioned it a little bit. Across Europe, all banks are, of course, realizing that we are very concretely now talking about a European CBDC as well, and this will, of course, affect the banking sector. But we also have to be aware of that we are very, very early. I mean, the ECB has now announced in the beginning of October that they are thinking about this topic. They have published their first official report, but no decision has made whatsoever. So it's also a bit difficult for us as banks to plan because nothing is concrete. And there is now a consultation process going on at the ECB until the beginning of January. And then mid next year, a decision will be made whether a central bank digital currency will be introduced or not. And what I am struggling a bit with is I have not understood completely, and I think the ECB hasn't as well, because it's just complex and not clear yet. What's the use case of a CBDC? Which problems is the CBDC solving, and which problems and use cases will probably remain for us as banks to solve? Because if you look at the monetary system today, we also have two different forms of money. We have one form of money that's offered by the central bank, and we have one form of money that's offered by the banks, right? Commercial bank money versus central bank money. And I believe it will be similar in the future. So for us, it will be very important to understand what is our part as a bank in this monetary system and what will be the part and the problems the central bank is going to solve.
Makoto, could you give us some insights on that? What is the real use case behind it? You've been working with Kabodyan on that very in-depth and launched yesterday.
Yeah, so in Cambodia, it's mainly retail settlement use case, which is a bit different, I think, than what the ECB is looking at in Europe, because Europe already has quite excellent retail settlement. Though, of course, credit card settlement is always a little bit slower than it maybe should be. But in Europe, I see wholesale settlement to be quite an interesting area for potentially having central bank money, because and this kind of goes back to what Lukas was saying about tokenization use cases. If you have a wholesale central bank digital currency, you can use this quickly to do real-time settlement, even of small or traditionally small transaction sizes for tokenized assets. And this opens up many new use cases. I also think that being able to combine many different layers inside the settlement system using central bank money should not be miscalculated. It's quite a very interesting potential, and there's many ways that you can combine these pieces of central bank money into many more interesting applications. So this composability, I think, will be touched on later in the decentralized finance panel. But as far as CBDCs go, composability is very, very powerful. You can take this money and you can put it in many different applications using different APIs.
Perfect. I'd like to invite our audience also to ask questions in the hop-in chat. We'll have it, so to say, we'll pick some up in the course. Lucas, I have one question written down here that somebody asked me. How does RBI benefit from the cooperation with you guys, with Bitpanda and Pantos, from your perspective? Christian gave me some insights on his own, but what do you think is the real benefit for the RBI?
RBI in general, I think Makoto lined it out quite well in regards to this example of wholesale transactions. So and also I like the RBI coin as of today, it's a proof of concept for exactly like fiat money tokenized or digitized on a DLT and on a blockchain. And the big question is, how can this interact with different blockchains, either that are assets, either that is just money movement, from A to B, and for them, they are also kind of like quite early, as also lined out where Deutsche Bank and also the ECB and the whole European financial service industry is as of today. And I think that at this stage, the most important topic is to try things out and to process also with the Pantos technology transactions in their system from one blockchain to the other, because in the end, it will not be there very soon really standard and a clear blockchain for these things. So it will be a trial and error. And for RBI, this is exactly using Pantos, as it's now in a state of being ready for proof of concepts in that industry to try things out. As Makoto said, as the Polkadot project is also doing, for example, this is exactly where Pantos for the European financial service industry is now really ready to use it and to use it in current proof of concepts of their internal CBDCs, or at least fiat money tokenization.
Could you guys give us maybe a brief overview of the global market? Maybe Makoto, you have a stronger view on the so to say one geographic side, but at the same time on the whole global market. What kind of projects are going on? You mentioned Polkadot, but maybe also others. And what are the differentiations between them? Where are the USPs? Do they all do the same thing, or do they position themselves differently?
So the interoperability is really nothing new. It's been around for several years, but I would say it's been pretty immature up until now. And many new initiatives are making this much easier to work with and more secure. So Polkadot is interesting because you have a relay chain, and then you can get finality on the relay chain. I've looked at Pantos, and I've looked at the white paper. I don't know all the details, but it also our team reviewed it, and there's nothing wrong with the protocol. It seems very solid and easy to use. Besides that, there's of course Cosmos. There's different types of other projects that have tried to do interledger support before, but it's kind of been very ad hoc, and the economic incentives have also not been very good in some of the previous projects over the past few years. So I think what has come out more recently is much more mature and more reliable, and this has helped a lot. As far as global scale goes, so of course we're doing work with CBDCs in Cambodia. We've talked to other neighboring countries and other Southeast Asian countries as well about building some protocols to interoperate with the Bakong system in Cambodia. But these are mainly, they're kind of like, one-to-one bridges that you build directly. So you have more or less trusted authorities that work together, and then you can build a bridging protocol. This is not a very hard thing to do. And current technology can do this very easily. What's more interesting maybe is creating systems that are more open and can allow any arbitrary chains to work together, assuming that they trust each other, which is not always the case. Like for example, there's lots of bridges now with Bitcoin, and these are very interesting. So we're like wrapped Bitcoins, or using something like Xclaim protocol or other types of protocols. Are quite interesting to look at. They always have a little bit of trust. You can't 100% get rid of all the trust in the system when you're building a bridge like that, but it is interesting that people are starting to put together protocols that can work in a composable way. So you can create an application that can take Bitcoin onto your ledger without actually knowing all the details about the working with the Bitcoin protocol, which is kind of interesting.
Alexander, Christian mentioned before their reasons for cooperating with Bitpanda and Pantos together. What kind of criteria would you guys apply when choosing different options, different projects and providers to work with?
I think the first quality I always need to see is that we are not talking about a company-specific solution if we want to develop anything in this space. And let's take now the major thing we want to develop, that's money on the blockchain, right? And what makes no sense at all is to develop a Deutsche Bank euro on the blockchain, right? Because no one will use a Deutsche Bank euro. Maybe our customers will, but probably Commerzbank or RBI will not accept it, right? So any project we are going to start is really about, we want to use open standards, and we want to build a solution that makes it really easy for our competitors and for anyone else, at least in Europe, to hop on at a later stage. Because without having this, and this has been done in the past a lot, I mean, when it was about tokenizing money and bringing money on a blockchain, what has been done was always to using a so-called e-money license. And this e-money license, it worked, right? It was possible to do transactions on a blockchain with money on a blockchain, but it was always bank-specific money that could be used in a very restricted environment. But what we were not able to do until now is to make this interoperable and having these multi-bank capabilities. And that's really important for the future. Because, again, let me maybe make this point, because I think it's really important. If you're talking about a CBDC, let's say the European Central Bank offers a central bank digital currency. We are having one money that's already interoperable within Europe, right? You have €1 which sits on one blockchain. But this is not how our current monetary system works, because currently we are not using central bank money in order to pay. Currently we are using commercial bank money in order to pay. So what you see on your bank account, that's not central bank money, that's not a CBDC, that's commercial bank money. And if we believe, and most people to whom I talk believe this, if we believe this is a good system, and we should stick to this, we need to think about how would it work if banks now offer money on a blockchain. And there we run very fast into this problem of interoperability, because there is not this one big institution that offers this money, but it's every individual bank that has to make a decision, which technology am I using on which I can offer my money. And these are the discussions we are trying to have, and the problems we are trying to solve currently.
Super interesting insight. Yeah, Lucas.
Probably to also jump in here, I think Alexander made a very good point. There will not be out of one company, one bank, one technology company, a standard developed. I think this is something where the whole industry will step by step increase adoption on that, and will join the most promising projects. And therefore, I think, or also believe, that open source software is the most important topic here, because it will only work if projects like also ours, like Pantos, will publish open source standards, which other ones can use to increase exactly that adoption. And that's the important part here.
Maybe just, we have one question in the audience, but before we jump into that, Lucas, just help me understand. Is that a competitive market that we're looking to? Are you guys competing with other projects? Or is this in the spirit of blockchain, so to say, collaborative, and there are different communities? Or let me rephrase that. Often in internet business, we say the winner takes it all kind of mentality. Is this kind of situation that we're going to be looking at in the future in the field of interoperability?
No, I definitely don't think so. Why? Because in the end, we are so early in these days on the blockchain technology on the one side, but also on the intra-ledger, so interoperability standards on the other side from a technology perspective. So any initiative, I think, for the whole market, at least for us, but I think the whole community sees it that way, is highly welcome, because only if we step by step can develop technology which is highly efficient and which supports exactly the use cases which were lined out in the last half an hour here, only then we can increase the adoption of either commercial money being moved between different blockchain, or also tokenized assets. So it's definitely a topic where every project is highly welcome. Why? Because also we learn a lot from other projects and they from us. And this is, I think, exactly the interaction of these communities, research communities and development communities, which are definitely needed.
Fantastic. Makoto, we have one question, I think, addressed to you. I would be very interested to know if the solutions in Cambodia is working, and if so, what is the scale? That's the first question. Also, can users download Kabodyan Real to their mobile phones, or is there any custodian for digital cash?
Okay, this is a great question. Cambodian system has launched actually with real money last July in 2019, and actually since then anyone in the country has been able to install the mobile app, and but you do have to have a Cambodian phone number, so it is a little bit restrictive. You can't be in Austria maybe and install this app unless you happen to have a Cambodian phone number. The money or the cash itself is actually digitized more or less. It's like a prepaid system where you go to one of the commercial banking partners and you give them some cash, and then you get the tokens, which are this tokenized money, and then you can actually do the opposite as well. You can give the tokens and you get cash back as well. So. It is what's really, I think, innovative and interesting is that all these transactions occur on a ledger that's maintained by the central bank. So you do get some finality of the transactions when you send it. It's kind of like opening up an RTGS system to every retail customer, which is up until now has not been really practical in, well, at least in most countries. I'm not sure. about all the European settlement infrastructure. SEPA is quite a good and advanced system. But at least in Japan, for instance, to do an RTGS transaction has to be over $1 million. So it's not for everyone. But in Cambodia, it really is for everyone. Even 1 US cent worth of money you can send, and it's on the central bank ledger, which I think is really exciting. I also really want to just also respond to Lucas's comment just now. And I think that really the whole blockchain space is very collaborative. Like, it's really about idea Darwinism. So people take ideas and they improve on them, and then that leads to new technology, and it's a very vibrant ecosystem. And I think that's it's very healthy for developing technology.
Do you think that your project in Cambodia will have pull effects in the, let's call, neighboring countries, at least at the beginning? Or do you think this will bring some kind of new dynamic into this space?
That's a great question. In neighboring countries, for example, in Thailand has very good payments infrastructure already, but I would say Laos or Vietnam maybe can improve their infrastructure. And so I think yeah, they can get some of these ideas and possibly improve their own infrastructure quite easily. There's other Southeast Asian countries as well, which are very interested in this. In Europe, I think maybe the Central European and Eastern European countries can benefit a lot from having a system like this. It gets complex once you get into Eurozone because, of course, Eurozone already has very advanced infrastructure, so there's less of an impetus for doing something new and potentially, it takes lots of time and effort to roll out a system.
Alexander, Christian mentioned it as well before, and all of you guys anyway as well. The question of collaboration in this field, you cannot do it alone. How is this? What is the situation in Germany? Do you guys work on your own project as Deutsche Bank, or do you have consortia of other banks working together in these topics? How do you go about that?
So communication is definitely happening, and of course I know all my colleagues from other banks who work on that topic as well. It is, so first we of course talking bilaterally, let's say, but this is also institutionalized in Germany via the Banking Association. So we have regular meetings with other banks and stakeholders where we discuss exactly these topics and where we talk about how could a solution look like. What we have not done until now, but this might happen in the future, is to actually team up with another bank and build on a concrete solution. I could imagine that this is going to happen in the end, that banks, it could be a consortium, it could be something more loose, team up in one or the other setting in order to work out a practical solution.
Mm-hmm. Lucas, if we listen to what Makoto said, it seems that let's say Southeast Asian market could be a good market for you guys at Pantos. So many countries, so to say, dealing with this topic. Is that something that you're looking into or focusing on Europe?
It's definitely interesting. I think for us, and this is also as we discussed the topic of community and community adoption, working on different solutions, it's a worldwide topic. Blockchain is not bound to geographics. It's not bound from a use case perspective to specific countries or continents. It's a worldwide topic. So also the technology we are researching on with the Pantos technology and also the developing can be used in all different geographics. We are happy to also, on the long run, provide that from Southeast Asia to North Canada. Nevertheless, and this is for us was the most important topic, to get one quite institutionalized player like RBI, here based in Central and Eastern Europe, and one of the leading banks, to foster our go-to-market and production readiness of a proof of concept technology like Pantos. But in the end, it's definitely possible for the whole world.
Will the first step for you guys be to develop different use cases out of this cooperation with RBI? And what could these use cases be? Maybe in some kind of timeline, what could the first use cases be deriving from this cooperation?
Yes, definitely. So for us, and this was the most important topic as a first step, is if we think that financial service industry and banks in general will go into any kind of digital money or moving around money on a blockchain technology, trying that out exactly with RBI Coin, which is already a first step from RBI side into that direction. For sure, it's not yet a ready technology which can be used by multiple banks in multiple ways, because the blockchain which is used is a local one and not an open source framework. Nevertheless, for us, the first use case is to move exactly tokens from RBI Coin to another blockchain, and to therefore show that this intra-ledger technology can really work, and that you can move it also, for example, to open source blockchain technology. And this is an interesting thing because, as lined out by Alexander, I also believe that there won't be a standard for all banks, only if the regulator will do it. And we have seen with the PSD2 regulation already in Europe that the regulator is not quite eager on defining technological standards, but mainly defining how technology should behave, and let the industry work out the technological details. And this exactly will also happen, I believe, on the long run in that regards. But let's see and stay tuned on that.
Makoto mentioned that approximately 3 years ago, there was hardly any dynamic around this topic on the market. Now we see these projects. Do you think the topic will be boosted now, that it will have awareness and pick up some speed in this? So the question is more or less, what is the future development going to look like? What are we going to see on the market?
So just for context, one of the reasons why interoperability is so important is because larger blockchain systems like Ethereum or Bitcoin have been subject to quite a lot of politics, and so it's very hard to do new things and to try implement new algorithms, for example, like proof of stake or other types of algorithms, just because of the ingrained political class that naturally is in all these systems. And so that's where interoperability really can help innovation, is because you can have many different people trying their own experiments and doing their own thing. And if it's successful, if it's a good idea, you can tie it into a larger ecosystem, similar to like the internet, right? It doesn't make any sense to have just one server. If it's just your own little world. You want to be able to connect to the larger internet and the larger world out there. So I think kind of the realization of this, and the realization that we need more people to have control over their own domain in order to do larger innovation, has really pushed the interoperability standpoint. Because let's be honest, interoperability is not easy. There's some bottlenecks, there's different speed trade-offs and performance trade-offs that you have when you have multiple systems working together. But in the end, it's worth it, because you do get better technology and you get access to larger user bases. So that's, I think, why over the last 3 years, people have come to realize this, and they've been pushing more towards this direction.
Do you think we're going to see more and more teams working on that in the blockchain space, focusing on this specific issue?
Well, I think what we'll see is a few, maybe 3 to 5 reasonable solutions that define some protocols, and then these teams will work together to create like more of a regular messaging protocol, similar to what the internet has. It's not always the best protocol that wins. It's the protocol that maybe has some like developer support or ease of use or political support, which is unfortunate. As an engineer, I want the best technology to win, but I know that is not always the case. But yeah, I think what we'll see is large amounts of developers coming behind. I would say 3 to 5 protocols in the short term, and then long term, these will standardize to hopefully one protocol, so we don't have fragmentation.
Alexander, what are your next steps in Deutsche Bank? Let's call them milestones maybe for next year.
So we are currently working out a strategy where we decide how we want to approach this topic, and the strategy will definitely revolve around the pillars custody, tokenization, then the topic of payments, which we have discussed a lot, and also the topic of digital ID. So these are the things we are looking at. And in particular, when it comes to payments and interoperability, coming back to our topic, I can maybe also give you a little bit my view onto how I expect the things to develop. I believe we will in the future have several different forms of money as we have different forms of money today. There will be money offered by the state, which might be physical cash, but which might also be something like central bank digital currencies. There will be money offered by private institutions. This is commercial bank money, which exists today. This will be stable coins, also something like Libra. And there will be decentral money, right? Something like a Bitcoin, for instance, or other cryptocurrencies. And all these different forms of money are going to coexist. And all these different forms of money are going to solve different use cases. And all these different forms of money are going to sit on different technologies. I don't believe that there will be one DLT which we can agree upon in the end, because Bitcoin won't change the Bitcoin blockchain. It will forever sit on the Bitcoin blockchain, right? So we will have different technologies. And this is why it's so important that we create interoperability, because otherwise we will have these different silos. There will be a Libra silo, there will be a commercial bank money silo, and so on. And if no one can communicate with each other, we are not any further than today, right? And this is why interoperability is such an important topic.
Fantastic insight. Lucas, Alexander mentioned it before. We're talking on this panel mainly about the interoperability between different blockchains, but he said as well that maybe China doesn't even use blockchain for decentralized currency. Is Pantos looking in solving these kind of use cases as well in the future, or do you just focus on the, so to say, blockchain switches?
We believe, and this is also in regards to Pantos, that it's in the first place will be between blockchains, because as now in the last sentences outlined by Alexander, there are different initiatives which all are blockchain focused to have different types of money, but in the end always money in different systems. And what China, for example, is doing, they're in the end using parts of DLT technology, but using them for a centralized, institutionalized solution. And if you for sure, as a whole system or society, can agree on one central institution which provides you centralized money, it for sure will be more efficient than if you would use a blockchain technology, because blockchain is a decentralized ledger and therefore will always be not as efficient as if you would do it centrally. However, for us, and this here is the main topic, e.g. the European Union, with a lot of different countries, with a lot of different participants, banks, central banks, a lot of central banks also in the end, and they all have for sure probably the same interests, but not always aligned ones. And this is when suddenly projects like Libra are created, projects like a CBDC, probably not just one, probably we have a CBDC, the euro, and then there is a Polish zloty, and then there is a Norwegian krona. Nevertheless, you want to move around money probably all on the same blockchain, or also between different blockchains, and also exchange that value. So I believe that there will be a large need, or already is as of today, on decentralized solutions and blockchain solutions, and therefore the big problem to be solved, because it's today's issue, if you already as of today issue on an Ethereum blockchain and you want to move your token to a different technology, it's just simply not possible. And therefore you need a blockchain interoperability. If the other thing is just a connection between a centralized system and parts of blockchain and a blockchain. But for us at Pantos, these different blockchain use cases are the real interesting part, because we believe that for the whole financial service industry, but also the blockchain community, there the real value add is lying in the end.
Perfect. On that note, guys, this was very, very interesting. Thank you very much for being here, for taking your time and discussing with us. Thank you also for 2 or 3 questions from the audience. I will take some of them with me for Stefan, because I think he can answer it better than this panel. That was it. Thank you, guys, and see you later.
Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot for having me. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Now let's move on. We prepared, before I call Stefan Angelic to me on the stage, we prepared another video for you guys. We have a Pantos explanation and promotion video to give us some more insight in a structured way about Pantos. And I'd like to ask my colleagues to play the video.
Hi Christian, my name is Lukas Enzersdorfer. I'm Chief Operating Officer at Bitpanda, and it's really great being here today.
Hi Lucas, my name is Christian Wolf, Head of Strategic Partnerships and Ecosystems with RBI. I'm equally delighted to have you here on board with our great event today.
Yes, it was really great when we announced 1 week ago our joint partnership between RBI and Pantos.
Definitely, definitely. It was a great occasion to go public more or less with this super information about our partnership that I believe is really of great value for our both future.
Yeah, definitely. We were following the Rbi Coin and Blockchain Hub project of RBI since the beginning of the year already, and therefore now really joining forces for the Pantos research as well as in regards to Rbi Coin is really a big step for us.
Yeah. Actually, we've also been closely following up on you and especially the growth of Bitpanda over the last few years. And we were super excited to see that you started this Pantos project, where we really believe this can be of great value also to solving a lot of interoperability issues that we see developing out of our current blockchain initiatives. And I was super excited that we have now seen you in this project mature to such a state that we can actually really test it with live products on our side as well. And as such, I'm really looking forward to that future cooperation.
No, definitely. So this will be implementing the Pantos protocol on the Rbi Coin as proof of concept, and then also ongoingly as joint project, really not just supporting Pantos in general, but bringing, as you said, also we believe that the banking infrastructure world probably to a next step in regards of blockchain interoperability.
Definitely. We are always looking into situations and solutions that actually help us solve customer pain points. And customer pain points is also to make it easier to transfer tokens, to transfer currencies across chains, etc. And I believe this Pantos project could be of real great value in testing that. And I'm such a big believer in the project that I really want to dedicate additional resources into this research project to again emphasize the importance that it has to RBI Group.
That's really great, and I'm really looking forward to our joint journey, which starts with this moment.
That's true. The same here. So exciting times ahead. Looking forward to great results.
Thank you very much, Christian.
So, thank you guys and welcome back. Stefan Angelic is with me on stage, the Blockchain Hub lead at RBI. Stefan, very welcome.
Thank you very much. Great to be here with you today.
Christian mentioned before we deep dive into the topic, you were the one who started enthusiastically dealing with the blockchain topic at RBI. If you look back at your starts and look at today's evening, what's the feeling?
Well, it's been, I have to say, quite a journey. When I took over the role in the Blockchain Hub, well, the industry itself, when it comes to enterprise blockchain solutions, was still at very early stages. And we also, within Raiffeisen, so our basically main responsibility at that time was to bring the topic internally, so to educate different stakeholders and through a small door somehow bring the topic in. So we started by analyzing different concepts from the purely theoretical point of view, and then at the start of the 2019, we decided that basically we also need to bring a proof of value when it comes to different blockchain concepts, and that's when we intensively started engaging ourselves with different kind of initiatives, proof of concepts, pilots, so really experimenting what the technology can bring. And first of all, it helped us get a know-how when it comes to blockchain, because well, the situation is, as it was mentioned in the panel, so the technology is still very young, that basically most of the concepts, in order to come to the right solution, you have to use the trial and error. So you have to try a lot of things and not to discourage yourself if you fail on this journey. And that's basically the path we took. And yeah, it also brought us a lot of good internal and external publicity that now, a year and a half down the road, I can be, and the team can be proud of what we achieved. So the topic got very nicely established internally, and we get also a very good support from our internal stakeholders and senior managements, and they also feel confident about having us push this topic. And through such way stay a very relevant player in this market.
And it's also exciting to see how you guys open up and cooperate with startups and blockchain experts in this field. We mentioned RBI Coin. You guys didn't decide to develop that on your own, but with one of your fintechs.
Exactly.
So could you give us some insights on that?
Yes, definitely. So we, I would say, we are not like this kind of a internal hub that is somehow acting too proud to develop everything on our own, because, and I always like to emphasize that the blockchain as such is not core competence of banks. So banks are at the beginning of the journey when it comes to the blockchain technology, and for most of the stuff that we are developing and that other banks are developing, it makes very much sense to refer to external fintechs and companies who have blockchain as the main area of expertise. And I'm very, very happy that we took this path, and also as Christian mentioned, so this actually, the blockchain topic kind of brought us a cohesion when it also comes to establishing our fintech partnerships. So in the last year's Elevator Lab, we were fortunate enough to have the application of a Polish-British fintech, Bilon, who already at that time had a very extensive track record when it comes to enterprise-level blockchain solutions, which made us confident that they're the right partner for us on this journey. And now, throughout more than a year, we've been working on several different initiatives with them.
A few quick questions from the audience that I think you could answer, talking about RBI Coin. Is RBI Coin going to be limited and predefined amount, or it will be possible for mining?
It will not be possible for mining. So RBI Coin per se is not a cryptocurrency like Bitcoin, Ethereum, etc. But it is a stable coin whose value is directly backed by the fiat currency. So being it euros, Russian rubles, hryvnias, etc. So as such, RBI coin cannot be mined. So basically, each RBI coin that will be in circulation will be directly pegged by the fiat currency.
There was another question for Christian at the beginning, but we ran out of time. I think partially we answered it already, but let's ask you again. Do you guys from RBI support startups using blockchain technology to resolve other problems than fintechs? Let's say using blockchain as remote workers identification for the purpose of more successful outsourcing strategy management of the company. Interesting question. Do you only look at your core business or beyond?
We look beyond actually, and I think that would be a simple answer that we are also, let's say, looking in how we could establish different kind of cross-industry partnerships which would not be directly linked to a blockchain, to the banking business. But what we've realized is that most of these initiatives, in the end of the day, they do have a financial context that then makes sense also for us to participate in such constellations.
Before we finish, just quick takeaways from your side from the panel, interoperability. What did you take away with you?
Yeah, so I hope that the audience enjoyed the panel as much as I did, because we really had great experts in there, and I think the consensus between all the participants is that the issue and challenge of establishing the interoperability is identified. So the issue is there, and we are still at a very early stage of basically coming up with a concrete solution how it can be done. And also to mention this analogy, for the people, if they might still be confused on what interoperability means in terms of blockchain, that if we make the same connotation in internet, in the world of internet, it would be if we would not be able, let's say, to send an email from Hotmail to Gmail. So we are facing the similar issue here now in the world of blockchain interoperability. But yeah, so we need to take steps, and as I said, to pursue this kind of a trial and error approach and to come up with a concrete solution in these regards as well.
By the way, I stole this example already from you, and I'm using it already in my moderation. final remark, you have very, very strong backing in your company. IT, we heard Alexander Zizek. Now we will hear Mr. Januszewski also having a strong statement on that. Could you give us some insights? What kind of teaming up are you experiencing?
Yes, definitely. So we are very happy from the RBI Blockchain Hub that we receive a very strong support from our senior management, so from our board of directors, and they are also aware that they cannot expect, let's say, the wonders and in-production solutions right away, but this is really, it really takes a kind of extensive learning path, and they're very eager to support our learning in these regards. And yeah, I think it might be the best to hear out what our markets board member, Mr. Januszewski, also had to say about the blockchain technology and where he sees the potential of it.
Stefan, perfect. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dan.
And let's hear the video.
In the past few years, we all came across stories about the revolutionary power and possibilities of the blockchain technology and comparison to those of the internet when it comes to transforming the ways in which people and businesses cooperate. And just like with the internet in its early phase of development, many initial concepts of blockchain technology seemed too abstract and were missing the tangible linkage on how they could affect our reality. Nevertheless, with recent innovation, the blockchain technology is reaching the maturity level where we've been encountering a very positive trend of many of these theoretical concepts being brought into practice and establishing the connection to the real-world challenges. One of the areas where I believe we will see the most progress and in production solutions in short to mid-term is in the field of asset tokenization. As such, tokenization is already a reality and comes as a logical consequence of the financial digitization. New fintech players have been rapidly building their own infrastructure, which positively triggered the traditional financial market. Players to pave the way for mainstream adoption of the tokenization and other blockchain-related concepts. This emerging market is one of the areas where blockchain not only delivers real, tangible value by reducing costs and taking out complexity, but it also unlocks new business models for financial institutions. The advantages of tokenized assets are already widely known and include some obvious benefits like frictionless and inexpensive transfer of ownership and 24/7 global trading with instant execution. Also, there are some less obvious but critical benefits like fractional ownership, ability to unlock liquidity from highly illiquid assets such as art or real estate, combined with a very high degree of programmability which allows for more complex conditional payment structures to be reflected and fully automated. When it comes to the legislation related to tokenization and digital assets in general, we are also seeing a lot of positive developments, with the European Commission taking concrete steps by introducing different proposals on how to protect consumers and investors, maintain the integrity of markets, but also on how to support the significant innovation potential that this technology brings along. For these exact reasons, we at RBI made a decision to team up with the Polish-British fintech Bilon and build this asset tokenization platform that allows us to get practical, hands-on experience by tokenizing different types of financial assets. Considering RBI's leading role in the field of payments processing in CE, we decided to start our tokenization journey by creating the RBI Coin, a digital representation of euro currency in the form of these coins. RBI Coin will be only the first step in our tokenization efforts, since concept can be successfully applied to other forms of financial securities as well. Having said that, RBI is currently devoting considerable resources in applying the concept of tokenization to other types of financial instruments, and we are already excited to publicly share the results of this effort soon. We at RBI not only understand the opportunity that tokenization of financial assets brings along, but we are also fully aware that only those financial institutions which engage with new technologies, plan for the future, and adapt to new trends in financial markets will be successful in the future. We are therefore determined to keep transforming continuous innovation into superior customer experience. Thank you.
Well, we say thank you as well digitally for this video. Strong statements from the top of the board. Thank you very much. And this excites me, obviously, to have such a strong backing for these topics of the future. Before we start with the next panel, we have another video prepared to give you some context on decentralized finance. And I would like to ask our team to play the video.
Our financial world is complex. The current financial foundation, with its legacy systems, is highly centralized and dependent on numerous intermediaries. This system has consistently been condemned for the lack of transparency and process efficiency, which triggered the need for change. With the emergence of blockchain technology, many of these challenges may be solved. One approach to tackle current challenges is through the Decentralized Financial System, or DeFi in short. DeFi is the concept that merges traditional financial services with decentralized technologies such as blockchain. This creates an open-source, permissionless, transparent financial services system without central authority. The basis of such a system are decentralized applications, in short, DApps. These are applications that exist and run on top of a blockchain instead of a single device or server. There can be DApps for everything: asset management, saving products, derivatives, decentralized exchanges, insurance, prediction markets, and more. They are open source and free from interference by a single authority. DeFi dissolves critical structures, but also increases the financial reach. All you need is a smartphone and internet. DeFi can therefore completely restructure classic financial services, such as lending. Users can easily lend their crypto assets to other users by depositing funds into a liquidity pool. Importantly, the platform uses smart contracts to bring lenders and borrowers together. Contract clauses are automatically initiated when certain conditions are met. Borrowers benefit from instantaneous availability of funds and high transparency. Lenders enjoy a more attractive return on investment because no third parties are involved. But what is the realistic potential of DeFi challenging and potentially displacing the global banking industry?
So, welcome back, and now we'll move on to our second panel on the decentralized finance. And I'd like to ask the moderator, Robert Kopich, the Secretary General of Blockchain for Europe, to join me on stage. Robert, very welcome.
Thank you for having me. Welcome to everybody.
You need to switch on your tone. I can't hear you yet.
No. Does it work now?
Can you hear me, Robert?
I can hear you, yes. But,
okay, sorry. Please take over, introduce your panel. I'll come back for wrap-up then at the end.
Perfect. So again, I don't know if you heard me before, but welcome. Thank you for having us today. I would like to introduce our distinguished panel today, starting with the European Commission. Peter Kerstens was so kind to join us today. He's an advisor on fintech and cybersecurity of DG FISMA, which is responsible for financial services at the EU level. Then we have Lee Schneider, who's the general counsel of Block One. And then last but not least, Stani Kulechov, who's the CEO and co-founder of AVE. I hope I pronounced this correct. Thank you, guys. Great to have you all here. Before we start the discussion, I would like to ask you to give your elevator pitch to somebody who never heard about what the hell is DeFi, and maybe give your views on how you would explain this to somebody that hears this for the first time, and you try to make him understand. So maybe we start with Lee on this, and then I give to Stani, and then I let the Commission comment on that and their views. So thank you, guys.
Thank you, Robert. I think the elevator pitch for DeFi is that it's blockchain-based financial-related services. I think there's two important things to remember there. One is that there's decentralization involved, and it's important to know how people define decentralization. And then people say DeFi the other the Fi meaning finance. But it's also important to remember that the assets involved will be blockchain-based assets or blockchain tokens. And so it could be anything. It doesn't necessarily need to be a financial asset that's involved in the underlying transaction. So although we call it DeFi, the Fi part is a little bit incorrect because of the nature of the different assets.
Thanks, Lee. Stani, what's your take on it?
Yeah, I think decentralized finance is a practically ecosystem of transactions which have different kinds of value proposition properties. And one of them, for example, is the immutability of the transactions, which creates a kind of like an ecosystem where you can interact with financial applications without giving the custody of the funds to a third party, which means direct interactions. So we could see like decentralized finance in the very narrow form as any kind of a cryptocurrency, for example, Bitcoin or Ethereum. But today, decentralized finance, because of the smart contracts, it allows you to create more complex code, immutable code, which means that you could create transactions which are more complex than sending funds from one place to another. And some of the interesting value propositions in general, decentralized finance. It's background noise. I know where it's coming from, but yeah. So it's the fact that there is transparency. So practically in public blockchain, all of the transactions are seen, so you can quantify and the risks that are involved. And I think that's the kind of like a properties involved in decentralized finance. But as an ecosystem, because it has grown so much, it's basically interoperable finance by default. Because when you practically deploy contracts into Ethereum, you could interact with those contracts without any permission. So this is the permissionless finance of the decentralized finance. You could also have permissioned finance in the same kind of like a decentralized finance category.
Thanks, Stanis. Apologies for the background noise.
Sorry for
control.
the
No worries. Peter, you're an experienced weathered regulator. What's your take on DeFi? Because you're working on this for quite a while, and I know that you have some views on this as well from your perspective. So please share them with us.
Sure. Well, we heard a great elevator pitch about what DeFi is. But in our view, or I should say in my view, because I don't speak for the Commission, I just happen to work at the Commission. In my view, decentralized finance is a typical example of an oxymoron, or for the lovers of Latin, a contradictio in terminis. Because if you think about it, finance really is an exercise in centralization, in centralized account keeping. And decentralized finance, or what people that promote decentralized finance do, is they promote the opposite. They promote decentralized ledger keeping. Now you have to make a distinction between decentralization and disintermediation. A lot of people who are DeFi advocates plead for disintermediated finance, and they use that on codes. Now, there's actually not that much disintermediated finance around in the market. Of course, the original Bitcoin blockchain was a good example. We saw that happening. It was set out to be a disintermediated payment system, and it worked, but not really as a payment system because of the volatility of the asset. Now, it is very fascinating. It has many functionalities. But what we did see with the emergence of the Bitcoin blockchain was a whole army of new kinds of intermediaries flocking around this decentralized ledger keeping and starting with re-intermediating activities. So this decentralized finance, with all of this finance being on the code and into smart contracts, in our view, is a bit of pie in the sky. It's all very interesting and fascinating, but we look really at the intermediaries and where the risk sits. Because what is finance? It's lending, it is insurance, it's payments, it's counterparties that are connected to each other with an intermediary. And you can't borrow money from a piece of code. You can borrow money from someone else or from a bank. You can't be insured by a piece of code. You're insured by an insurance company. And so we have to be a bit realistic as to what we're really talking about. That said, I think that distributed ledger technology and blockchain technology more specifically offers huge opportunities for upgrading finance. But this intermediating finance, I don't think is a possibility. That really is pie in the sky. Thank you.
Thanks, Peter.
Hey, Robert, can I just make a few comments about what Peter just said?
I actually just wanted to hand it over to you guys because I'm pretty sure you're sitting in your seats and want to shoot back verbally. So please go ahead, Lee, start. And I'm pretty sure Stani has also some opinions about that.
No, I thought Peter made some excellent points there. But I just wanted to clarify, there is still a centralized ledger when you're talking about DeFi. It's just that centralized ledger sits on a decentralized platform known as the internet. And the ledger itself can be downloaded by anybody. And the ledger is updated by anybody. So when we talk about decentralized finance, as I said in my elevator pitch, we also have to be careful, as Peter points out, about how we define decentralized. It's not that there is no central ledger. There is a central ledger. It's more about how that ledger gets updated and maintained rather than whether or not it's central. And then on the question of whether or not you can have insurance from a piece of code as opposed to insurance from an insurance company, I think one of the really interesting things about blockchain technology is this tokenization, this ability to create a digital asset or a crypto asset that attains value through the usage by individuals, through the speculation by individuals on its valuation, and through other means. And so in some sense, you're almost creating value out of nowhere, which I know is a challenging concept for most people. But when you can create value out of nowhere, that is to say, you create the value out of the code, you actually can have code provide loans or provide insurance. And when I say that they're creating value out of nowhere, that's obviously not quite true. But we can look at plenty of examples throughout the history of the world where we create valuation, where we give valuation to items that there's not really anything more than an emotional reason for that valuation as opposed to an economic reason for that valuation. And with blockchain and digital assets, you can sometimes get both emotional and economic value created for those digital assets.
Thanks, Lee. Stani, any feedback on what Peter just said?
Yeah, I think kind of like I definitely agree on the points in the sense that there's usually people who are calling the smart contracts to do different kinds of functionality. But I think practically Lee had a point here that you can actually create a lot of value, and it happens in centralized entities, or let's say central banks, where value is created, for example, through inflation and other means, and that can happen also in the kind of like decentralized, or let's say smart contract economies, where you can create different kinds of tokens, which are practically either rights or obligations. And from that, you could actually, when you create value, you can create different kinds of code that could be a financial transaction of lending and borrowing, or even insurance. And that is the thing, because when you have this kind of like a social behavior of people, kind of like supply and demand, that demand basically drags the value and the pricing of these various different kinds of assets, and then they might have some actual functionality based on that. So I could imagine that there could be a smart contract based insurance where there is actually no counterparty. For example, in the Aave system, deposits in the protocol is actually kind of like secured with the token economics, in a way that, let's say, if there is a smart contract hack, the governance can practically decide to cover the deficit with the slashing of those tokens. And this is practically about security, and it's quite similar as it will be in a higher, like a network level of proof of stake, where you secure the blockchain itself. And it's very difficult to secure the blockchain if that particular element doesn't have any value, which will be the token or the cryptocurrency. But it has value because it's used as securing element. So the fact that it's securing the blockchain, that creates the value, and then people price the value with the kind of like equity or the value it has. And there could be other of this kind of like functionality in smart contract level. But I definitely agree on the points that it's not that straightforward.
Thanks, Stani. Peter, when you listen to Lee and Stani, does this actually correspond with your view, or do you think we're still talking about two different things? Because I think they try to address what you mean. Is this something that you would agree with, or is this still something where you think like, wow, this is far away from what regulators normally look at?
Well, I think, to be quite honest, that I'm not smart enough to understand what Stani and Lee are saying. I'm not saying what I don't want to mean that what they say is wrong. I simply just don't understand it. Because take these tokens which are created on blockchains, and let's be practical. Let's look at Bitcoin. Bitcoin has value because people paid real money for Bitcoin, and do pay real money for Bitcoin, and that's where the value emerges from it. But the code itself doesn't generate any value in a financial services sense. Like, if I crash my car and I want to collect an insurance payout for it, I hope that there is going to be a counterparty that is going to provide me with compensation. Because if the code provides me with compensation, where is it going to get the value from? Unless it pulls that value out of thin air, in which case it's a bit of a Ponzi scheme, and this entire DeFi structure is a hugely inflationary system that creates values that have no real backing in the real economy. And this, of course, brings us back to the origins of why we have central banks that control the money supply. Because if you don't do that and you just let people generate value and money, you're going to end up in a huge inflationary bubble that is fine for as long as the music keeps on playing. But if the music stops playing, the entire thing collapses. And that's why you need to have institutions, centralized institutions, that are regulated and that are supervised for stability and market integrity purposes to balance out this system. So I do not think that DeFi can replace finance, but I do think it can enrich finance. I think some of the methodologies which you see in decentralized ledger keeping, and I agree with Lee, it is actually a centralized ledger, but it is updated in a decentralized manner. That is actually a very interesting concept which contributes hugely to problems of, for example, reconciliation of accounts and settlement systems and clearing systems, which are very, very complex. So that's a huge advantage. But I do not believe that these systems generate value out of nothing.
Hearing that, Stani, I think when you started AVE, you probably had an idea of what you want to improve in the financial system. So maybe to add a new layer to the debate that we're currently having, maybe could you explain why you started AVE and what was your take on what didn't go as perfect as it could be in the current system and where you basically came in and tried to improve it? And that would be interesting, I think.
Definitely. Just to answer to also Peter's point about basically Bitcoin having value because it's exchanged from another currency to Bitcoin, I think that's not the value. It's basically why people are actually buying Bitcoin, because practically it provides the security for the actual Bitcoin blockchain. So practically, if you look at Bitcoin, it has code which is regulated. So that's the regulation part. And practically, when the users of the blockchain, they're actually paying with Bitcoin the transaction fees, and they're not actually transaction fees, but they're insurance for the miners that basically they uphold the ledger. And because this mining happens, it could be even proof of stake. They actually get inflation. So new Bitcoins, or not anymore, but let's say how it used to be traditionally, or if you look at, for example, Ethereum and so forth, new currency is being created as well as a reward. So it practically mimics the regulation of central banks, what they have, for example, in terms of inflation, but the actual regulation can be anything in terms of it could resemble what we have in current economy. It could be completely immutable. Many things in the Ethereum ecosystem in terms of decentralized finance are immutable. So once they're deployed there, you have to actually change the whole ledger and get everyone to update the code. But when they are immutable in the smart contract level, you can't change. Or you could add governance on top of there, where, let's say, token holders can practically change that code. And I would say, like, in terms of like insurance, you know, like where Peter, you mentioned that let's say if you crash with a car and someone needs to pay that damage, right? So, for example, pretty much in smart contract, something similar could be done where a token is issued, let's say a normal token which doesn't have any value, but let's say whoever owns that token will get a bit of inflation, and this inflation is basically the reason why they're holding this particular token. But there's a condition that if something happens, whatever this token is securing, part of the equity of the token could be slashed in a way that more inflation could be created to compensate whoever gets damaged, a car accident or whatnot. And practically that will be the compensation, and that smaller inflation is actually the reward. So there are practically mechanisms to do it, and it could be even simplified. Of course, the problem is that we in the space, we talk with language which is very technical because we're so close to the implementation, but all of these concepts could actually be nailed down to very simplistic use cases. And I think things like Bitcoin is a very good example, because the value actually doesn't come from buying Bitcoin. It's actually because the Bitcoin secures the whole network, and that is why people are buying it, because they want to transact in a secure network. So what practically got me into the DeFi space before it was actually called DeFi was the immutability of the smart contract. So I saw, like, the first time, my background is in law, and I was studying about how could technology be used in terms of improving or mitigating disputes and lowering, the amount of disputes that are going to courts and arbitration. And I found out smart contract, which was fascinating for me, because you have this immutable element, which practically means that the contracts are always executing the way they have been programmed. And that's pretty much like got me into the space and excited, actually.
Thanks, Stani.
Just following on what Stani said, I think Stani made great points. And Peter's raising very important questions here, because this goes to the core of what people are trying to accomplish. But this idea that code can create value, that code can be the thing that holds custody of your assets, that the code can make the decisions about when a trade takes place or not. Those are sort of challenging ideas. And yet they are ideas that have been with us for the last 30 years in financial services, because as we've seen the marketplace for financial services get more and more electronified, we've seen all of these changes happening at centralized organizations, and how those centralized intermediaries interact with the larger market system, market structure, and other intermediaries. So all of this has slowly been getting more and more electronified, to the point where right now, if I place an order in my online brokerage account, effectively everything is happening through a bunch of computer messages. And DeFi is just taking all of that and putting it onto one platform, and thereby simplifying everything, because you don't need to have all of those instructions passed from entity to entity. All that's happening is the code is programmed to do all of those things in a prescribed order as soon as the right input starts the chain reaction.
Peter, if I may ask you, you were part of the team that created MiCAR, and looking at what we're discussing today and what we consider DeFi, do you see any bits in existing regulation or also in the MiCAR addressing this? Or is there a need for addressing this, or not yet? Maybe it would be nice if you could give us your view on this.
Yes, so MiCAR does not address the entire issue of code. We do not regulate blockchains and whether they're permissioned or unpermissioned or smart contracts and so on. A lot of people asked us to do this, but we said, no, what would be the point of trying to regulate how this code operates? We think that would be very damaging and it would stifle innovation. The reason why we didn't do that, because we never, or almost never, regulate technology, and if we do, we end up soon regretting it. What we regulate is activity, economic activity, and intermediation. And if that economic activity is carried out on a blockchain, that doesn't matter. It's still economic activity. And so MiCAR covers, for example, not the mining of tokens and so on, but it covers the issuance. So if you, as a party, as a legal or natural person, well, you'll have to become a legal person, issue tokens and sell them to the market, you have to do a white paper, you are regulated. If you create tokens which are referencing a real-world asset or a not-so-real-world asset, or they reference money, you'll have to be authorized to do so, because we do not want people to create fata morganas and smoke screens and huge financial bubbles. So that's why you have to regulate it. If you provide brokerage services, trading venue services, advisory services, wallet services for all of these instruments, no matter how fascinating they can be, you are taking on risk. You are concentrating risk in your activity. You are presenting issues of and risk for market integrity and for investors and consumers, and therefore we propose to also regulate you. So MiCAR definitely covers decentralized finance, but we have a personal scope and a material scope. So personal scope, that means the entities that provide the services or the activities are regulated, and certain services are regulated, but not the technology.
Thanks for clarifying that. Lee, looking at Block 1, you're operating in the US and in Europe. What do you see as the biggest differences in the approaches to DeFi in Europe and the US? Is there a market that works better, makes more sense? with smarter regulators, maybe?
It's a good question,
nice to know.
Robert. No, it's a good question, and I think it's just a little too early to be able to give a solid answer to the question. I think as many of us are in the blockchain world, are trying to make sure that we understand DeFi and what it means and how it works. I think many regulators are very much in the same position. We've started outreach with regulators, and Peter has been very receptive to having conversations, not just about DeFi, but about MiCAR and other things over the course of time. We've been talking with regulators at the SEC and at the CFTC in the United States to try to understand their thinking about DeFi. But the area is so new that we're not getting any firm answers just yet as people continue to learn.
Thanks for this excursus. Stani, just when you look at back to Europe, do you consider DeFi as a competing element with the existing financial industry, or do you see it complementary? Or what's your take on it? I mean, we're speaking now or talking now on a conference of a very established Austrian bank. So I think they would be quite interested in what you actually have in mind with their industry.
Yeah, I think, I mean, I definitely don't see it as a kind of like a much of a like a parallel universe, because it really brings a lot of value, a lot of good things. So practically, one of the interesting stuff that, for example, Peter said about that they will not regulate code, but the activity. It's interesting because, for example, what DeFi for me brings is practically transparency, and not just like transparency in the sense that you can see all the transactions. So you basically see what's happening in the market, and you can analyze the data. So and the data is correct. So it's not wrong in the sense that it's immutable data. It's basically there. So in that sense, it's auditable by anyone. So it's auditable by the regulators, by the market participants, and other key stakeholders. For me, that's a very big value proposition. And the other important thing is the kind of like self-enforcement and self-execution, because I think earlier we were talking about kind of like it's important that for example, that banks, or let's say central banks, establish the regulation, and or can be the party of issuing, let's say, a currency because they're regulated entities. But I think this regulation could be pretty much transformed into the DeFi, in the sense that certain kind of smart contracts are what provide a lot of value, and certain kind of smart contract doesn't. And this is a fact because actually with think of us like a, let's say, smart contract based blockchain as an operating system. It's basically a computer that you can do any kind of software. Some software are good and some bad, and whatever you do, they will live on the blockchain. And normal consumer, I think the issue is always the kind of challenges to protect the investors and the consumers. And usually they have the access with the front ends that has been provided. So when I'm thinking about the regulating code, and instead of regulating activities and not regulating the code, mining, for example, is not regulated, but then let's say issuance of a new currency is regulated, which is for me a bit somehow kind of like a challenging, because both of them are kind of like economic activities. I mean, mining is basically providing the security. Issuing a new currency is basically, you could issue something similar as Bitcoin, and that might be regulated in that sense. But I think like these value propositions, I could even see that maybe kind of like, some of the code could be regulated in the sense that, let's say, if it's a certain type of financial activity, maybe then you could regulate the intermediaries that are providing access to different kinds of protocols. Because let's say if you look at Bitcoin, Ethereum, and the trading of these currencies, usually the regulated activities are who are providing services to trade them and taking custody. And because somehow I see Ethereum, Bitcoin, and DeFi being pretty much the same. Their code and basically their decentralized protocols, and the DeFi is just an extension of that. It's also a financial system as Bitcoin, for example, is, or Ethereum, and it's just a more interoperable, so you can create more things. And of course, the fact that anyone can actually access to this system and build on this system brings democracy in the sense. Imagine a kind of like a ecosystem or lending market or any kind of market where anyone from the world could participate and actually access or even build technology. So it brings quite a lot of innovation if anyone can actually, with the same rules, build new things. And this is one thing, and also like access it. But there is definitely challenges, but the value propositions of DeFi is really interesting, what smart contracts brings. So I think it's kind of like a way to improve many things that are kind of like unsatisfied in the finance that we see today.
Thank you, Stani. Lee, as we're slowly coming to an end, and I would like to take this last round to ask you each one more question. What do you see as the main drivers coming out of DeFi for the existing financial services ecosystem as it is today?
I think right now it's all about experimentation. I think my guess, I don't know for sure because I don't work at a large financial institution, but my guess is that large financial institutions have people playing around with DeFi to see how it functions and what it does. Whether or not they will start committing serious capital to any DeFi platforms, I don't know. I spend time, particularly on the weekends, playing around with a bunch of different DeFi platforms. Stani, apologies, I haven't gotten to Aave yet, but it's on my list to get to maybe this weekend. But I think right now it's all about experimentation and really trying to understand how these platforms function, what their capabilities are. And it's important to look at the different platforms because there are different platforms that do different things, have different functions and features. And to Peter's point and the point that Stani reiterated, it's important to know what those different functions and features are, in part because you need to understand how to use the platform, but also in part because if you're trying to get value out of the platform, it's impossible to figure out how to get value out of the platform if you don't know how it functions. And then as a final matter, you want to understand how it works to see what the regulatory implications might be. And I'll just reiterate a point that I made at the beginning, which is, although we call it DeFi and the Phi is finance, when the underlying assets that are being traded are not financial instruments, it's the regulatory issues are different. They're not your typical financial services regulatory issues. And I think Peter and the team at DG FISMA that drafted MiCAR, they recognized that there were crypto assets that fell outside the realm of MiFID financial instruments, and the regulation there is designed to capture those. Now, whether or not we should be applying financial services concepts to non-financial assets is an interesting question, and I have strong opinions about that. But the concept that the core concept of you need to evaluate these assets and determine whether or not they're financial in nature before you figure out how to regulate them, I think is a very important one.
Thank you, Lee. A question for you, Stani. As you're in the middle of the DeFi growth and DeFi ecosystem, how would yourself or Ave measure success of DeFi in the upcoming years? What needs to be achieved to be for it to be considered a success story?
I think safety is like the number one thing, because many industries over the past history could actually they might not need that much of a regulation if they work without any issues, whether the issue is practically related to investor protection or consumer protection. And finance has been regulated because over the time of the history, that hasn't been achieved in the traditional sense. And with decentralized finance, I think there's many things that could be actually fixed right into the, for example, into the code. But the thing is, and also like the system in its transparent nature solves a lot of past issues that we have. If we look at, for example, the 2008 crisis and how it began, and compare the transparency that's in the Ethereum, for example, public blockchain, or for example EOS, that's the basically thing. But to succeed, basically, I think DeFi just needs to be enough secure that we don't see, for example, different kinds of smart contract bugs or hacks or this kind of like a activity that is counterproductive. And the fact is that because you can practically create any kind of smart contract, whether it's financial or non-financial, it's sometimes might be difficult for the end user consumer to understand what they should interact with. It's the same with cryptocurrencies. There might be thousands of cryptocurrencies, but might be that many trust the security of, for example, for Bitcoin or EOS or Ethereum, and those choices are what consumers and investors might have to face. And I think like those access points might be the thing where responsibility goes, but it's very hard to see from this perspective. But inside of the DeFi space, I think the security is the most important thing, and that if users are interacting with the smart contracts, that they're safe and secure, not just technically, but also the economical aspect of those contracts. And it's very common that DeFi protocols are auditing their code with multiple auditors, and also doing economical stress testing and modeling as well. Not everyone, and this is the issue, because these are expensive measures, but the truth is that anyone can actually build something and deploy to the main Ethereum network, and practically it becomes an issue if it gets a lot of traction and there's no audits. So that's the security is, in my opinion, the biggest challenge.
Thanks, Stani. And as a last statement, we give it back to the Commission to conclude. After what you heard today, which recommendations would you give companies in the space and people working on DeFi projects on what to look at to succeed from a regulatory perspective?
Well, for that, I would say that finance really isn't a computer game, although some people in the financial world very much behave as if they're playing a computer game. Day traders on trading floors, they think they're playing a computer game. Finance is about risk. And I hear people say, well, we are creating code and this code creates value. But that really is a euphemism for creating risk. And finance is about managing these risks. What we are most concerned about is that people in this space, creative and brilliant as they may be, and very often very well intended as they may be, end up creating snake oil that is sold onto unsuspecting investors and consumers who have no way of understanding any of this gobbledygook that this code is supposed to do or perform. I tried my best. I'm not very smart, but I'm a bit nerdy. But I must say, most of these presentations on this code are completely wasted on me. And I make a real effort trying to understand it, but I'm not smart enough. So we want to avoid that people sell snake oil, smart contract-based snake oil. We also don't want them to engineer or innovate their way out of the regulatory framework. It's not because you decentralize risk or you decentralize your account keeping that the risk goes away. The risk sits very much still in the system, and financial regulation is about managing that risk for stability purposes, for market integrity purposes, and for investor protection purposes. So the people who are developing decentralized finance should not only think about the code they're developing, fascinating as it may be, but also think about what economic activity am I really providing? And what is the risk in this economic activity? What is my exposure? And what prudential requirements should I take to manage and capture these risks? That's what I would recommend.
Thank you, Peter. With these words, we thank the panelists for your time and your expertise. And if you want to respond to Peter Kerstens' contact details on the Commission homepage, so please, he's always happy to do so. And thank you all. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you very much, guys. And dear community, welcome back on the main stage of our digital event, our Blockchain Night. It was a great event, super content. I've learned many new things. Thank you, RBI, for organizing this for all of us. And we would like to wrap up the whole thing together. And I would like to welcome Gernot Bretenhaler, Blockchain Hub RBI, with me on stage.
Yeah, hi, Dejan. Thank you for having me here on the main stage. Was an interesting panel.
Do you have any additional thoughts on decentralized financing?
Yeah, I mean, for us in the preparation, it was quite an interesting topic, because we were expecting a controversial discussion, and also maybe some parts are not so nice from a banking perspective. But one thing is crystal clear: we as RBI take the position and have the perspective of an incumbent banking service group, and we do not want to ignore this topic. We are following closely our strategy in the Blockchain Hub on this topic, meaning we closely observe and follow this topic. I'm quite confident that sooner or later we will have a good idea for a use case or a small pilot, maybe also with an external company specialized in DeFi to do something in this area. But one thing is clear: we have to keep and stick within our rules, within the regulation and within the laws for the banking industry when we are going in this way. But I think at the end of the day, this is a very nice topic, and as Peter mentioned it, I hope that DeFi will enrich the financial industry and not replace it, of course.
Yeah, of course. But in any case, you guys are here to look at it in deep depth and understand what the future is bringing here.
Yes, this is our role, perception in this topic, to really go into this topic, to investigate, and hopefully do then some real practical exercises on this as well, because it's our duty anyway to answer questions of our customers, and at the end of the day, hopefully in the mid and on the long run, we are also in a position to serve our clients' demands in a DeFi perspective as well.
How did you find the rest of the discussions? The first panel, I thought it was extremely valuable in total, the whole event. I think, if I'm allowed to say that, we have 230, 250 people joining this digital event. What's your resume?
Yeah, it's perfect. We are completely satisfied, really overwhelmed, because also the chat was very active, a lot of questions, a lot of
Thank you guys for that, that's important.
Thank you very much for this. Yeah, it's the third edition of our Blockchain Hub event, this time, of course, completely virtual. Everything went smoothly from the technical point of view, so also big applause and to you guys at Brutkasten that everything went so smoothly. And I hope also the audience enjoyed it as much as we did it. Yeah.
And there will be more to come.
There will be more to come. I mean, coming now to an end, we still have two small announcements to be made. Also, both topics already tackled a little bit in the chat. One thing is for all guys who want to technically connect to RBI, we will relaunch our Open API marketplace next week. So go to the RBI webpage or join us on the api.rbiinternational.com homepage and get connected with us.
Wait, but this sounds very big. You're relaunching your API website.
Yes, yes, we have it already in place, but now we have enriched it with new functionalities, and this will go live during next week.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. What do you expect from that? You invited startups already or other experts to join in to work with you guys on this platform?
Yeah, we are simply enlarging it because this will be the single point of contact for our network banks API system as well. So this will be, there will be new features on it and new APIs to be played with.
Fantastic. Again, the website?
api.rbiinternational.com.
Great, thank you. And the second announcement?
Second announcement, and also hello to Surjan from 0BS Network. He was also quite active in the chat and responding a lot on this topic. So we are happy also to announce that our small internal blockchain project, the REST project, we will prolong it for some more months, and we will even enlarge it to our second office premises in Vienna here. Despite of this all Corona stories and the home office, we were really able to find more than 50 volunteers within our banking group to play with our Canteen app. Some bloggers already called it the RBI Schnitzel coin. So
you have to name it that. That's original.
Yeah, we have to rename it maybe in this direction. But yeah, more than 50 people, a lot of transactions, no problems. So we are confident to continue this journey. We want to enlarge it. We want to have new people onboarded into the system, because at the end of the day, even though it's a very small use case, it serves our purpose perfectly. We want to get the concept of tokenization to our employees to really test it and have a real life and day-to-day experience on tokenization.
So did I understand it correctly? It was a limited project, but now it will be prolonged and expanded.
It will be prolonged and expanded, yeah. And let's see what the future brings, and maybe step by step and slowly but steadily we will grow this pilot into the organization, and maybe it will stay there.
What was the feedback of the 50 volunteers that were using it?
To put it in a nutshell, more than 80% would immediately recommend it to the colleagues, because it's really replacing a very cumbersome process of paying in the canteen. So
how did it work? How was the function of it? What was the concrete use case? Maybe you can just briefly explain it.
The very brief that the use case was or is that you have an app on your mobile device, and with the help of the app, you pay for your food and for your coffee at the cafeteria and at the canteen. Okay. And it's a tokenization system behind it. So really, tokens are moving away from your private wallet to the wallet of our canteen provider.
Okay, and the tokens were provided by the RBI?
No, you are uploading the tokens with a cash transfer.
With fiat money?
Yes, with fiat money. It's a stablecoin system at the end of the day.
Perfect, and it all worked out perfectly?
Worked out well from the very first day on. So thank you, Surjan, and 0BS again for this collaboration. Yeah.
Perfect. I saw Serjan Kupreshanin as well in the chat. Thank you, Serjan, for helping us communicate in this chat. It's very important. It's a super vibrant community. This gets me excited in the blockchain space all the time, how you guys interact with each other and help each other understand things. Also provoke each other sometimes, which is also good to have some emotions in place as well. Guys, thank you very much. Anything to add to wrap up the whole event?
No, I only can also say thank you. Thank you for the organizational team. It was quite an effort to get these things done. Thank you again for you guys in Broadcasten for supporting us here. Thank you, of course, for the panelists, for their contribution and for their time. And last but not least, thank you for the audience. Yeah? So more than 250 people joining in. It's quite a record for us. So we are quite happy. Yeah?
Yeah, you're building communities and you're building ecosystems, and I think people, sense that and will join our next events as well together. Stay tuned, keep in touch. RBI will inform you about the upcoming events. They're planning a lot of things for you guys. I could see some of them already. It was a real pleasure to moderate this event, to host it together. Thank you for being with us, and good night.